Hey, Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, the latest on racial tensions in Louisville. The Democratic U.S. Senate race heats up, and I talk with one of the candidates, Mike Breuer. All that and more is next on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome to Hey, Kentucky, along with LEX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer. Hey, Keith, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing, Mary Jo?
We're doing good. Let's get right to it. We begin with the latest headlines surrounding racial tensions in Louisville. The Beshear administration says barbecue restaurant owner David McAtee died from a bullet fired by the National Guard and not LMPD during last week's protests. Executive Cabinet Secretary J. Michael Brown says prior to being shot, McAtee fired at least 2 shots from a 9mm handgun. Meanwhile, one of the 3 officers under investigation in the death of EMT Breonna Taylor is now also being investigated for sexual assault. Several women claim they were trying to get home from bars late at night when Officer Brett Hankinson approached them in his uniform, offering them a ride home in his cruiser, leading to sexual overtures. And Louisville city leaders are discussing the possibility of reallocating funds from the LMPD to other city departments. It's not clear where the money would go, but one criminal justice expert says it doesn't mean getting rid of police, but shifting the burden of addressing issues like mental health, domestic violence, and homelessness to other agencies. And Keith, that's some things that police are charged with doing right now, checking in on homeless people, making sure mental health checks are okay. And maybe other offices would be better equipped to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are some things that I'm really starting to delve into to see about these fundings going elsewhere and police departments being defunded. I've certainly looked at the Camden, New Jersey police department, and they had defunded theirs, and it's been interesting to see. They go door to door and introduce themselves when they come onto the department, and I think there are a lot of great ideas to learn from there as well.
There were. I was looking into that as well. There are some great ideas there worth taking note of. All right, Kentucky's chapter of the NAACP is calling on Governor Beshear to allow for civilian oversight of police misconduct amid ongoing protests. Black leaders are calling for state and local reforms which would impose strict police accountability, limit the use of force, eliminate racial profiling, demilitarize law enforcement, track and report data, and ensure proper screening, education, and training of all officers. The NAACP is calling on Governor Beshear to issue an emergency executive order to override current laws that keep cities from appointing civilians to oversee police officer misconduct, internal affairs, and other disciplinary action for sworn officers within the state. And Keith, I don't know if I'm for an all-civilian board, but I do think having some outside voices heard isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm with you exactly, dead on. I think that it would be great to have them have a voice in this. I mean, you know, we deal with so many statistics and things in sports. It would be good for people to be able to keep tabs on what's going on within departments and be able to know how things are trending. Yeah,
absolutely. We want to invite you to join us for a special edition of Hey Kentucky tomorrow night. Come Together, a conversation on race, is a discussion involving Lexington Mayor Linda Gordon, Police Chief Lawrence Weathers, Adrian Wallace of the NAACP, and the Reverend Clark Williams with the People's Campaign. We'll talk about working towards solutions during this turbulent time. We'll see you tomorrow night right here on LEX 18, 7:30. Turning to politics now, State Representative Charles Booker is making a strong push for a Senate nomination heading into this month's delayed primary election. The Louisville Democrat released his first TV ad this week, taking aim at Amy McGrath, who has been considered the frontrunner because of her name recognition and impressive fundraising totals. Booker touts himself as a, quote, real Democrat who won't embrace President Trump's policies. Big endorsements have also been rolling in for Booker. Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they have thrown support behind him, along with the Lexington Herald leader and former Hey Kentucky host and current KSR host Matt Jones. And Booker came out swinging against Republican incumbent Mitch McConnell in an MSNBC interview this week.
My message is very populist. I'm speaking to issues that are at the kitchen table. Listen, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've had to ration my insulin and nearly died from that. That cuts across party lines. And a lot of folks that supported Trump are supporting me because they know I'm going to fight for Kentucky for a change. And someone like Mitch McConnell has profited from our pain and sold us out in every way imaginable, could care less if we die.
McConnell's campaign defends his record, citing the large round of funding he's brought to Kentucky during the COVID-19 crisis. Keith, I think every state has gotten an exorbitant amount of funding during the COVID-19 crisis. That happened everywhere. But this race is getting interesting.
It certainly is. I mean, it seems like there's those from the outside and those in Washington that are, really pushing McGrath, and then it's like this all of a sudden this huge grassroots movement to get Booker, into that position, and it makes me wonder. I mean, we always hear about, does McConnell have a little book on everybody ready to attack, and is he really ready for Booker?
I don't know that he is. All right, less than 2 weeks away from the Kentucky primary, nearly 500,000 voters have requested an absentee ballot. In Lexington, the county clerk expects a higher than average turnout. This week, Don Blevins Jr. took voters behind the scenes of the process, trying to assure them that security and accuracy are top priorities. You have until June 15th to request an absentee ballot. There will be an in-person vote at Kroger Field on June 23rd. Meanwhile, Louisville Representative Jason Nemes has joined several voters across Kentucky in a class action lawsuit that demands more than one in-person voting location in several of the most populous counties. And early in-person voting got underway this week. More than 160 voters in Paducah took advantage of the polling, where officials asked them to wear masks and offered other safety precautions. Governor Beshear has called on the National Guard to help election officials with COVID-19 safety. Keith, I've requested my ballot. It seems to be a pretty simple process. Hopefully it will lead to greater turnout.
I tell you, I did not request mine at first, and then I saw a tweet when it said that the only place to go vote was Kroger Field, and I was like, all right, I'm requesting mine now, and I did that because I don't want to be standing in that line. You saw what happened in Georgia, right? Those long lines and everything. Yep. I don't even want to be a part of that, so yeah, I'm going to vote by absentee ballot as well.
Next time I go to Kroger Field, it's going to be for football, Keith.
Yes.
Not to vote. All right. In other news, True Blue fans were greeted with an unsettling image to start their day today. Former UK football star Lynn Bowden was seen handcuffed during a search of the Ohio home he grew up in. Officers from the U.S. Marshal's Office and the Drug Enforcement Agency reportedly seized a number of loaded assault rifles and handguns at the home, where a source says DEA agents had also made drug buys, but not from Bowden. There were also no arrests made. Bowden's mother took to Twitter to emphasize that he had not been arrested, and his grandmother, who the home belongs to, has never been in trouble with the law. Keith, Lynn's agent has since come out and said Lynn is not involved in this at all, not arrested, not charged with anything.
Yeah, one of his sponsors also backing him as well. It's one of those kind of weird situations that, had Bowden not been sleeping at his grandmother's house, we wouldn't know this story even existed if you weren't in Youngstown, Ohio. So it's one of those things where he was just wrong place, which happened to be his grandmother's house, at the wrong time, and we'll have to wait and see what develops from this. Again, no arrest at all.
Absolutely. We'll keep our eye on it. Now to our weekly feature on Hey Kentucky, What's the Beef? Sponsored by the Kentucky Beef Council. A Louisville restaurant is suing its insurance provider for denying coverage during the COVID-19 shutdown. Berenice has also included members of the Beshear administration as defendants, asking a judge to rule on whether the governor's order for restaurants to close to in-person traffic was a, quote, valid and enforceable order of a civil authority. And that's tonight's edition of What's the Beef? Up next on Hey Kentucky, we'll check in with one of those candidates in the Democratic race for U.S. Senate. Mike Breuer will update us on his campaign. Stay with us.